Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and we are back with some commentary on the People's Choice Top 200 solo games list voted on by the amazing population of solo gamers over on Board Game Geek. So this is a really celebratory time of year. This video is going to focus on games 51 through 100. So I want to introduce my co-hosts and then maybe give a little bit of commentary. So Derrick, you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Derrick. I play board games. No, I'm a solo.
You don't say.
No, he doesn't actually. We just brought him on
It just
because he's nice.
not even real. I'm not even real. So my name is Derrick. I'm go by on my channel, Canje Studios. I play solo board games live. Do not call me Canje, call me Derrick because I'm nobody special. So thank you so much for having me.
Maggie.
Hello everyone, I'm Maggie. I'm the themer half of the YouTube channel ThinkerThemer, which I run with my wife Amy. And we do YouTube board game reviews, and sometimes some lists here and there, and just in general just chat about games. Thanks.
Fantastic. And my game bestie with whom I go back very far, especially on these commentaries, the original commentary host, Jason Perez.
Yo, my peoples, what's up? I'm just so excited to spend time with Maggie. I'm spellbound. The ThinkerThemer channel has blown up. I remember when it had 1 subscriber, and now it's like has tens of thousands, and I'm so excited. Oh yeah, and Derrick and Liz.
We love you too, Jason. You'll come back to me in the end. I know it's.
He'll come back.
You have your dalliances. Oh man. So before we get going with the commentary, I do want to note, in case this is the first video that you've come onto, one, we need to absolutely thank gaming goat Kevin Erskine, who is the one who's been putting this list together for years and years and years. He's an absolute hero of our community and we love him. And it's important to say that because this is his last year running this list. And so I want to make sure that we let Kevin know, even if somebody else takes the list over, you're still our favorite. No one's ever going to be you, man.
That's a lot of pressure for the next person.
They need to have pressure. It's big shoes to fill. No, I do hope this tradition continues, and so does Kevin. He's actually really, really open about that. So we'll see what happens with the list next year, but I very, very much hope to see a new person or team of people take it over. But Kevin has done an incredible service to our part of the hobby. I firmly believe that the solo gaming community is the best community in gaming, because nothing makes you want to talk to other people more than sitting and playing a game by yourself, because then you have to go report on it. So I feel like that's just what we do.
We're the biggest online groups, and that's like quantifiable. Like we were big online groups before they were really big online groups. Yeah. Because gaming is inherently social, but it doesn't mean that we have to have a bunch of people around the table. Like a part of it is we experience gaming, and the first thing we do is we want to share it with our friends, and well-wishers and other people. So like we were on this train, this whole online thing, like way before the pandemic, and then the pandemic kind of blew it all up. The real one, not the game. The game is my favorite, but yeah, I think it's in this lower half of the list, maybe not the actual game. But no, to the point about the solo gaming community, it really is like it is dope. And if you love solo games, there's a group out there for you.
Absolutely. All right, so on to the list. This is part of a 3-part series. This is the second video in that series. So we previously covered games 101 through 200 on the list. We're now talking about games 51 through 100. And then, of course, we will get to the magnificent 1 through 50. But this is actually, I mentioned I love looking at the kind of bottom half of this list, but I also really like to have a glance at 51 through 100. Just because it's not the last video of the series doesn't mean there aren't a lot of gems in here. So, yes, anybody want to comment on some trends they saw or things of interest?
One of my favorite games on this, it made it into the 5150 list of all time, and I need it to go higher because it's incredible and I love it and I'll never let it go. And Jason has it in his background.
At
the top shelf.
I thought it was Cthulhu Death May Die. What
no, right there. Where your finger? No, up to the right. Up. all the way. Yeah, there you go.
There it is.
Gloom and Kill Forth. This is a game by Tristan Hall, Hall or Nothing Productions, and they just delivered Call of Killforth, which is the third game in the series. It has I challenge all of you to find a game with better art than that game. It has the most beautiful art I've ever seen. I love the gameplay. There is some therapeutic history for me and the reason why it's my number one, but I'd love to see it higher, but it is where it is for people of for fans of the series. But I see a lot of games on here that are a lot in my top list. This War of Mine, that's in my top list. Frostpunk, that's in my top list. So I'm happy to see those ones. Yeah, but this is a nice list.
Two super cheery, uplifting games. This War of Mine and Frostpunk, the board game. Like, you just exit those games going, I feel good about the world.
Nothing like sadness and child labor to make a game just feel right.
That's so funny.
Just feel good games, just cozy games, you know? Like that's my
Nothing beats a warm cup of coffee and a blanket.
This War of Mine.
And death and destruction. I feel like we've gotten so much insight to Derrick today.
Well, I mean, it's the insight. It's insight into the solo community. Like I've been, again, as I've been saying a bunch of times, it's probably good that the list is kind of over because you notice similar things. Like this is the part of the list where always those kind of games cluster. Like Gloom and Kill Forth has been here the whole time. It's I think if a kind of a prototypical solo game was making their top 10 and submitting it to Kevin, it's like they'll put their favorite game on top. It could be whatever. But then there are these like games that people love. They're their 5th favorite, 6th favorite, 7th favorite, and they're there. So it's like, Gloom and Kill Force on that list. Cthulhu Death May Die is on that list. The Tainted Grail has kind of made that list. These are big games, people. They're not going to be the first things that people pull off the shelf, but they remember having a great time with it, and they remember it being very memorable. So, and that's and they, like, in terms of a big adventure experience. So this is going to be like, it basically sustains Kickstarter. These types.
Jason, do you feel that not just Jason, Liz and Maggie as well, do you all feel that whenever we get to this section of the list, this is the forever game list? This is the one that's if you will, not saying all of it, but you will find games that are in here that are on your forever shelf. Like
I think that there's going to be. I mean, part of it's mathematics. Part of it's just distributionally gamer experience. I mean, there's going to be games in this list that are certain people's forever games. Like Old Sworn is another one that's in here. I know people that just love, like they're going to be like into Old Sworn. There's like 1 billion boxes for it and everything. I mean, and I think that's also part of it. It's like, okay, these are big games with lots of expansions, and the people that actually explore all the expansions, God willing, they're it's going to be their list. Absolutely.
Awesome.
I was going to say, all jokes aside, with the heavy themes, those are pretty, like, I think those are great games that give you a real experience. Like, you come out with, like, they touch you and they sort of make you feel stuff in a beyond just an intellectual exercise of like, oh, that felt intellectually satisfying. It's like, oh, that made me, like, that was, that hit me, in the feels, or it really made me kind of see things differently. So on that note, from a happier side of, like, one thing that I was surprised to see here is Earthborn Rangers.
Yes, I was just gonna say that.
So it's like, it's one of the things I've been so looking forward to, because it's sort of open world, and it's just like that solar punk. So it's not like the more sort of semi-optimistic side of it. But I was surprised that it was this high, because I'm like, how many people have actually gotten a chance to play this yet?
It's just delivering. It's
only just delivering now.
So it came out earlier in Europe because it was printed in Europe. So a lot of people had a couple of months to play with it in Europe. So like that, I mean, the fact that it's like, I don't know, a fraction of the gaming community has it, and on the strength of their votes, which usually they put it like 1 or 2, it's here. If you're like, I was gonna say in the last episode, Liz talked about Risers. This is my pick for Riser. This is gonna be
for me.
I just got into the prologue, that first mission, and it's like, oh, okay. And I'm still reserving judgment because you never know. But for now, it's like, okay, this might be something that stick around a while.
That's cool. Yeah, for me, whenever I see games that haven't delivered full worldwide yet, I usually say give it a year, right? Because so for Europe, who's gotten it and they've done their reviews, there's also the people who are like, oh, I love the company, so 100, and so you get that weird amalgam of scoring where it's supporters who either love the company and said we're going to give them a big score, mashed in with those who actually got the game and played it. So usually after a year, you actually see it kind of median off, and you see like people who actually got to play the game are now scoring it. But Jason, if you're saying like this game that you've played so far, you're like, oh yeah, I'm feeling it, then I mean, there's no reason why it shouldn't go higher.
I'm feeling it. And like a similar thing happened to Alter Quest when I first played it. And I'm like, whoa, this is going to be a game I'm going to love forever. And then it wasn't.
Yeah.
And then I sold it. So and it's a
That's
good
Halo's
game,
oldest
like,
time.
I mean, at the beginning you're kicking down doors, and I don't know where Alter Quest is in this list right now. I didn't check.
Well, I mean, Street Masters was down in that bottom 100.
Right.
Blacklist is also now on the blacklist because they, as a company, have like failed in
they got the
big
stink.
ways.
So yeah, I mean, look, I first busted out that game. I'm like, wow, this is the game for me. You're kicking open doors, you're doing combos and everything. And the more you play it, it was like, okay, wow, these combos are super heavy, and I'm tracking a lot, and it kind of the bloom came off the rose. So like if I was a younger reviewer, I'd be like, Earthwood Rangers is the greatest game of all time. I can't believe it. And I've been scarred enough to be like, okay, let me give this a couple plays. But what Maggie was saying, like, I am tired of these dour games. I want big adventure, but I don't want it like, misery, farming. So give me, something happy, something exciting, and something exploratory with some challenge too. And it's, oh my God, like it could be up there of top 5 for me in a couple of weeks.
And I think the thing on my side is like those games that I mentioned, the sad, gloomy ones, they're there because the theme got me. And I think that's I was a huge fan of the IPs, and the game did it better. Right? Wow. This War of Mine, the game is better than the video game. And so it just because the theme hooks me, that's what makes it like I love these games that are on here. I mean, Nemesis is on here. Another, there's one thing I have a problem with Nemesis, but other than that, I enjoy it immensely.
What's the problem with Nemesis?
The alien health. I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. Like I flip it over, it's 3 health. I flip it over, it's 7. It's like, no, it's 3.
This is where the solo rewriting of history is needed. What's actually about this stretch of the list is that, it's funny, like, I look at it and I can only see how much I've changed as a gamer in the past few years, because there's a bunch of old classics in here that I don't feel as close to as I did early on. So like, I'm surprised Agricola is still this high, because I remember playing it out, and I've been done with that one for years. It kind of, there's, Baseball Highlights 2045 is still hanging in there. That one I do still really, really love. It's really interesting to see Space Hulk Death Angel hang on as long as it has, because
that's crazy.
It's got to be people who have a copy who are just really happy to have a copy of Space Hulk Death Angel as it becomes more and more scarce. And
it's just have a for years.
When is it going to get choked out? Like, it just has got incredible life to it. It's kind of impressive.
I got one. I'm not giving it up.
Me too. I'm not giving it up.
No. You got $200. Maybe I'll think about it.
I was gonna say, just as somebody who's into kind of like wargamey things, like this is like extremely empty of my games? Kind of thing of like wars and historical. Like, it's just,
I was going to say, because it's very like Euroful. I'm like, I recognize everything.
Extremely Euroful.
Like, I'm in my pool and my kiddie pool of,
Yeah, it's full of Euros and things that I used to like better than I currently do. And it feels really
role
weird.
Player is one that I'm new to role player, and I know that it's been around for a while, and it gets a lot and I see that it's slipping. So it's like, that's now kind of going down 25 points. And and I actually learned that one from you, Liz, actually.
Role player? I love role player.
Although, speaking of Euros, Concordia looks to be on the rise now that Concordia Solitaria is out in the world.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to track that one.
And I'll say the blaspheme thing. I've never played Onirim. I know nothing about it. I don't know what it's like.
Oh, just go get the app. It's like $1. Like,
Yeah, I got it here. It's kind of dark because it's sort of like nightmare sort of.
Oh, so my type of game, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so you might really connect with it. You might kind of go.
It's too cute. The nightmares
it is cute. Yeah,
it doesn't like the nightmares go boo and then they go away. It doesn't like scare
like
you and make you poop your pants. That's what Canje wants. He wants to poop his pants.
He wants to feel the despair of it.
I want soiled underwear.
Bring me my brown pants.
That was the quote. Yeah, I want soiled underwear.
There are with these games, it's usually for me, like I said, it's the theme. As a solo gamer, and I think Steve Barrett and I talked about this on one of our co-op chats, is that as a solo gamer, mechanics fall second, theme comes up to the top, whereas in larger groups, mechanics probably rise higher than theme. But for me, it's, why do I care to play this game? And if that can hook me, then I'm checking out the mechanics and peeling it and moving that to the side to see if it can keep me. And so with games like this War of Mine, the theme, yeah, I mean, can you deny the theme in that game? I mean, it's sadness, but it's good. It's good sadness.
Yeah, it's very well, it's harrowingly, what's the word? Well treated, like as a theme. Yeah.
So speaking of games like, okay, so Onirim, I mean, Liz and I are very, we made podcasts about it, and once the full Oniverse is done, we're gonna do the big list, and we're in on forever. It used to be the filler of choice, years ago. So like it would be that or Friday, and that would be like toggling between those two, and solo gamers have kind of found different things.
But that was all we had back in our day.
That's all we had. That's all we had. Now we have all these other options.
I had to walk 15 miles uphill in the snow to the game store.
Both ways.
But I can see why it fell. I mean, it's it is what it is, and if you enjoy it, you enjoyed it. But if you are a newer gamer coming in, it's not going to be the thing that leaps off the shelf. I mean, there's blingy, shiny new stuff. I mean, Button Shy really took over as an example of a game that a company makes smaller games. I don't want to spoil the top of the list, but like, there's so many other newer, lighter, funner. Like, I mean, Rove is as an example. Speaking of Button Shy, I don't know if it's Button Shy, but it's definitely small. As an example of a little tiny game that just packs a lot of punch and is so much fun. And so Onirim has a lot of competition there. So I love it, but if people aren't gravitating towards it, then I totally understand. Pandemic is here. I mentioned Pandemic. It's I think Kevin combines all the different pandemics. So like Star Wars Pandemic, World of Warcraft Pandemic, he puts them all in one thing. So that accounts for it being here. But like, sure. I'm totally in love with that being here. I kind of put that in the bucket of like a role player, a game that not solo gamers aren't going to be like, okay, I'm going to spend all day with this. But it's like, oh, okay, it's on the list, and I have or it's on my shelf, and I have a little while. I'm gonna pop it down. So,
yeah, one of the games on here that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Maggie.
No, you got it.
One of the games that's on here that I noticed is 51. I've never played it, but I've heard everyone talk about it. And if the three of you have played it, let me know. But Turing Machine, and its rank changes 502
last year. I've never played it.
It's okay.
It's okay.
What do you call it? Deduction games. Like, it looks so clever. Like, it's such a clever system, but I just never have resonated with deduction games. And so that's where it's like, for me, it's like I play a couple and then it's just it's like now it's gonna get harder. It's like, I don't want it to get harder. I'm done. I thought that was it. So yeah, but it is very, very, I think it's very well done. And if you like that genre, you would love that.
Okay. All right. You were gonna say something, Maggie? What was?
I was gonna say, because I'm not usually into fantasy or dungeons or things like that, but one game that I was fairly late to but completely won me over was One Deck Dungeon, which is sort of sitting there at 65. And just that whole concept of like having that whole bunch of dice and like just it and like the sort of dungeon crawling, not a theme that I'm ever into, and yet this sort of concept that it's all in this kind of compact little box, but then you sort of that one I'm sort of glad to see that it's holding a bit, but it's sort of slipping a little bit. But I think it's
Mhm.
probably going to be one that kind of stays, holds its position for a bit longer, hopefully.
I want to play two games that I think are going to have new life, but maybe not under their current titles. So the first one of those is the most obvious, which is Renegade, which came in at 89. It's Ricky Royal's game. It's fantastic, but you can't get a hold of it anymore. And there have been some challenges about the title. So I know that he's working on it and that he intends to have it re-released as a game called Deckers. I don't know like when exactly, but I believe that if Renegade is hung on for this long, that when Deckers hits, it's going to be big. And the other one is, it's actually Resist. So Resist is fairly recent. It's gone up 44 spots on the list. It's at 81. I think it is a wonderful little quick solo card game with a historical theme. But I actually think that it will ultimately be replaced by its successor, which we've already talked about a bit, Witchcraft. I think Witchcraft is the superior game of the two. It took everything that was good about Resist and added a layer that made it a little bit better with the trials. And I also think the theme and the art are going to be more interesting to a more mainstream audience. So I think that Resist has done well and that it will continue to do so. But I think that Witchcraft is ultimately going to pop up and eclipse it once people start to get it into their hands.
That's exciting. Like Resist is one that I had seen for a long time. And just because of the theme not really being something that I was kind of as into, I just never really picked it up. But now Witchcraft I haven't played it yet, but I'm like, I've done that thing where you set it up and you're ready to play it and then you don't get around to it's like, and then you kind of pack it up and you're ready to get it back out again. So and it's just the matter of the theme, like just changing the theme to something that was way more appealing. I think it's going to have a much broader audience now. Yeah.
I've not played it. I have yet to play a David Thompson game. Hi, David. I haven't played Undaunted. I haven't played whatever, but if I'm gonna play one at the start, it's gonna be that series of titles, and I hope I can track them down at some point.
No, it's gonna be Night Witches.
I like to acknowledge with Witchcraft, even though they're creating a it's kind of set in a sort of fantastical world, like so the sort of like elements of magic are real in this universe that they're creating. They still have at the very front of the rule book an acknowledgement of the kind of the horrific realities of the witch trials that took place, and so I think that's the kind of stuff that I want to be able to sort of see highlighted, going, hey, even though this is a game, be mindful that this is not like, this wasn't all just fun and games. Like this was actually like, this is, So I think it was a good way of acknowledging that and going, even though this is not set there, just be mindful of that. So I thought that was a good, I want to see more of that in rule books and games.
Excellent. So we talked about, so let's just bring on the negativity now so that we don't do it at the end of the video. If you could kick
negativity, don't look at me when you say that.
How do you know I was looking at you? I'm merely looking at my screen blankly. So if you're going to kick one game out of this part of the list and make room for somebody new, what game would you dump out of this bottom half? Let's go. Let's get something fresh in here. Ooh, I'm willing to, let's spill that tea. Let's do it.
For me, oof, nervous. There was one and I saw it. Now I can't unsee it. Anyway, move past me and I'll come back. Sworn.
Ooh, that's drama.
That is controversial.
I've met the dev. I love the dev. I love the company. I think they're great. Sworn's cool as pretty. As you play the game and you get into it, mechanics just kind of, it's like what I attribute it to what Jason said about Alter Quest, where he was like, this game's incredible, I'm gonna sell it. Because that's exactly what happened to me with Oathsworn. I'm not gonna knock people who like the game. It's a good game for people who like the game. It just it did not sit for me. So it was like, I probably would bump this down a little bit lower and move like Gloom Killforth a little higher than that. But no, that one I would say I would keep it in the 51 to 100, but move it lower than it is.
I'm not gonna take that check. I mean, this is not our list; it's the people's list, and every single game reflects love from people. So it's like, even if I'm looking at something and then going, ugh, it's tongue in cheek. Like when I know, like, last thing, it was more like the cultural stuff. Like for here, I can look at every single one of these games. Not that I've played all of them, but I'm familiar. And see, okay, whoa, I can see where it just hits people right in the heart. It's like, okay, this game belongs to you. Kanban belongs to you. Not my game, not even close. I mean, woof. In terms of a whiff, a Kanban being like a huge heavy euro for Vital Lacerta about like making cars or whatever. Maggie, do you know about Kanban?
I have it there, and it's a shelf of shame moment because I have not played it.
Exactly.
It's like one of two that I have not played in that. Yeah. So no, so I can't speak to that. But I agree in that there's nothing in that list that it's because the ones that I'm not familiar with is because it's not my type of game, and so I couldn't say like I'll get rid of it because it's like, well, it's not my type of game. So it's obviously there because the people who that there's a game for love it. So
right.
Yeah, there's nothing of the ones that I've played. I'm like, yeah, I feel like they deserve to be there. There's
right, and like sometimes you get like an overrated game. It's like, I can't believe people like this, and I honestly don't see that. Like a game like Tapestry, right? So Tapestry would be an example of a game that people regard as overrated, and because it was hyped and civilization, but a euro, blah blah. But it's like, oh, it's really just track manipulation, and there's some wonkiness to it, but the people that don't like that game filtered out. There's some expansions came in, and now it's like kind of settled in, and people it's found its audience, and it's getting print runs. So it's like things like that of a game that either hits or misses or whatever, but it finds its audience, and its audience loves it. And every single one of these games, I can say that I can't think of like a clunker in this entire list.
Well, you can say that for the entire 200-300 list thing that came in.
Oh, there's some clunkers.
Oh, yes.
You go further down.
Well, that's the bit. That's the
further
bit.
down. There's clunkers.
That's the bit though. Like with these lists, and when we talk about them, and when we say things like, "Well, is there something you would move?" It's something I would move, not something that the community would move. And so I think that's a distinction to draw when I talk about this, and when we talk about these things in general. It's my opinion. Right.
Yes.
So if someone comes along and says, well, I don't agree. Cool. and that's pretty much what it is. And so it's not I want to make sure to set that tone, right? When we talk about this stuff, is that this is something to where it's for me or not for me. It's not, oh, I don't know if we can use swear words on this. It's not like I'm pooping on this game.
Family friendly, please. Yes.
All right. Yeah, it's not like I'm pooping on this game or saying, hey, this game needs to be erased from the annals of history. It's just more when it comes to these lists, and we look at these lists and we see these things that line up, we then say, this didn't sync for me. So when we're looking at this list and say, well, what would you drop on this list? Personally, this one, right? But that doesn't mean the fans know what they like. They are smarter than me, so they've chosen this, and that's how it is.
So that said, Derrick, what is it, and why is it pandemic? Just to make Jason mad.
I was gonna say, having said all that, Liz, you brought it up. So what is it that you're wanting to put on that?
Right.
Actually, you know what? Nothing. I just kind of wanted to open up the topic, but what this list is...
I told you, Liz is setting a bait trap, and we all resisted. Well done, guys. Don't take Liz's bait trap.
So I will spill some tea that'll make people horrified at me just because it's funny. But then I'll say something that's more, I think, real about this part of the list. Like, because I followed this list for so many years, and because we're kind of in a transitional time, I'm thinking about kind of saying goodbye to things, right? And like changing as a gamer. And so we'll get back to that. But I really don't get Cthulhu Death Demi Die, and it may have been that I had a bad teach, but I played it once and I never went back. But I know there are people who love it and will just absolutely wave the flag for that game. So there's got to be something about it that's good, and like maybe I just had a bad first teaching experience,
or it could be that it's not,
or it's just not for me. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think why people like Cthulhu, because there's like a bunch of like like Lord of the Rings, Jordan of Middle Earth is a similar game, like ish, and that kind of big big adventure stuff. I think Cthulhu Death May Die does the best job of being like just a rock'em sock'em. Yeah, like it gives you that like kind of rock'em sock'em robots feel, but like not totally popcorn. Like it's a better game than like a Massive Darkness. But it reaches that sweet spot of it's Cthulhu. People like it. It's like big minis. People like those. It is very visceral, and it is very like every single turn you're killing something, and you're running all over the place. You're not doing the Mansion of Madness thing where you're like, let me solve this puzzle and all that kind of thing. No puzzles. Like you're constantly moving. You're constantly doing stuff. You're constantly upgrading. I have my problem with like the sanity thing as a thematic thing, but like mechanically it works wonderfully. It's so kinetic. And just for that reason, like, it feels like, if Mr. President is like the West Wing, Cthulhu Death May Die feels like 24, if that makes sense. And I'm not, I know old shows. I have to update.
It's okay.
Show.
If
we're
that is
not
an old show, if that's an old show,
how do you do,
then
fellow
you've
kids?
Carbon dated me. That's an old show. If you want old show, you got to go back to A-Team for me.
I know, right? Dude, 24 was like 24 years ago.
but I do want to reflect on this. So the other thing is that, we've all kind of been in this biz for a while, right? Like various amounts of time, but we're all serious gamers who've been gaming for a long time, who've been having channels for some time, who've been just creating things for some time. And, I do believe that there's a place in the solo community for everybody, but it's also interesting to watch myself change. Like I used to be a much more, I guess, like centered on like a solo gamer in the sense that I would look at this list and see myself. And I no longer fully do. And I also kind of see like the passage of time very much in this part of the list. So things like Shadowrun Crossfire,
right? Space
Hulk Death Angel. Like I did bring up Agricola. I do think that it's, I guess it's still a classic, right? But it's aging.
Legendary Marvel deck building game. Legendary is old.
Yeah. And so, and Onirim continues to fall. That used to be like one that we really had. Sentinels of the Multiverse, I'm actually surprised is holding on so well, just because it's been around for so long. Like they released
the
more
definitive
of it, right?
edition really gave it new life.
Yeah, I think so.
And so the definitive edition really fixed a lot of things. Speaking to that, like new life, Castles of Burgundy, which I'm not a Euro person, but
yeah,
I mean,
but it's back.
The deluxe edition came, that one that spent like $5,000 for like giant tiles and everything, and it breathed new life into the game. So if you really as a publisher, if you feel like you want to breathe new life into something, hey, look, there's an appetite for it.
But it also just kind of makes me think about, I don't know, like I feel like this is the most transitional part of the list. So it's not about what would you kick out, but it's about how do we see our times and our community changing. And I think that this is a part of the list where you really, really see it. Like that bottom part of the list jumps around a lot and it makes it exciting. But this is where the kind of slow bleed happens of games that used to be super, super hot until they fall into that bottom part. And I don't know, I guess it just makes me think about transition. Like, what am I personally ready to kind of let go of? And there are a lot of games that I used to think, well, this is a classic solo game and I'm a classic solo gamer, so maybe I should hold on to it. And I've really changed that in the past maybe 2 years. And this just kind of brings it home for me. Thinking about Kevin leaving the list, thinking about, some of these things that have held on since he started making it, but not really knowing how much longer they'll be there or wondering about it. Like, I guess I just sort of feel the future coming and the past receding.
Everything.
Well, I'm a historian. I can't help it, right? Like to me, this is like just a fascinating snapshot of our community at this moment in time. But I don't think it's going to look like this for very much longer. Like I think some of these older games are. They seem to have some zombie strength on the list, but I just don't see a future where they remain.
Yeah, it's sort of aged to the age gladiator that's been here for a while, but now it's just not fighting as hard as it used to, and it's just on its way to retirement slowly. But just
some of them will remain. Some of them will remain in this bracket for for years to come. I mean, they'll fall off eventually, like you said, but they still got some heart.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So does anybody have any final observations about this? Oh, actually, yes. What is your favorite game in this part of the list that you think should be in the top 50? Let's do that. Let's stop.
Mine's already covered. So Maggie, Jason.
Yeah, Maggie.
Well, Earthborn Rangers, I think, but again, I haven't played it, so it's just based on hype alone. It's like I feel it's the kind of game that I want to have more of. It's like this sort of more, my understanding of it at least, is more kind of optimistic and almost just like yeah, like solar punk exploration, and that's not just all combat. Like there's so much combat based of, you know, attack and defense and attack and defense. It's like, give us something, you know, different. And that's, you know, kind of unrelated to this list, but things like, you know, Spirit Fire that are, you know, sort of going into crowdfunding. It's like, it's just kind of opening up this sort of solo spaces that are quite unique. And in a way, it makes it really difficult to communicate, and that's been one of the challenges for games like that, to get
Maggie,
the
what attracted you to Spiritfire?
I'm super spiritual, and so just this one, the concept of no combat, I absolutely love. Two, this concept of like the spark, and it's all about like the how you do things, not necessarily the like, you know, the what you do and how you change and how you grow. It's like, oh, that is the ultimate music to my ears. It's like that is the world that I just want to lose. That's 20 hours is nothing. Like I will spend hundreds of hours like getting lost in that, because I already do. Like that's my life. That's like that's what so yeah.
Yeah. I think like I'm so glad you said that. I mean, when it comes to the like, because it's not just the games, it's the audiences, right? The audiences change, and the list is changing because the audience is, I truly believe that it's the audience is changing. And you know, the old paradigm was either combat if you were adventure or war, or building if you were on the Euro end, and like building usually meant like civilizations and all that. But we have games, you know, Wingspan, spoiler alert, it's been on the list forever. It's almost this year. I think opened a lot of doors, and a game like Spirit Island opened a lot of doors, and you know, they'll keep on going, right? And I'm hoping Earthborn Rangers opens doors of like, we don't need to define like all gaming needs to have a contest of some sort, but it doesn't have to be a combat. You know, there's all these other ways in which challenge can be modeled in a way that's interesting and fun and challenging and engaging, but not like, you know, not like in the zero sum, you know, one must die so that I must live and have victory way. And I know I'm again,
what? That's not Maggie, how it just works in the whole world.
Maggie, you and I, this is why we need to just like drift off together, like we're in our woo land. And we're so aligned on this. I mean, I am totally, yes. Give me growth, give me challenge, and then like, you know, overcoming all that thing, you know, getting to a point where like interesting story is the point, but also a game, not just like an activity. Yes, please.
100%.
Fantastic. Jason, who do you want to breathe some life into? See, up in that top 50. I could guess.
I mean, it'll be it'll probably be Earthborn Rangers. Definitely, probably be Earthborn Rangers. Yeah.
Excellent. So for me, if I can give just a boost to one of these, it would actually be Maggie. I think that it is, you know, it fell 6 spots this year. It's a respected game. A lot of solo gamers do clearly like it, but I think that they should like it more. I really like Maggie. It's a very charming, small worker placement game with a fun historical theme. It's just one of those games that it's easy to overlook it, I think, but then when you get it back out and play it, you're like, you know what, that really is a little charmer, isn't it? And so, you know, I just want to flag it because I think that it's one of those games that's easy to overlook, but then when you stop overlooking it, you remember how good it is all over again. And you know, speaking of like things looking different, right? It's a really great example, I think, of a historical game, which I'm a fan of, that doesn't look like a traditional war game, because I don't care about that. I'm interested in like, does this represent history in an interesting way? And I feel like Maggie is like pushing at that. All right. Any last thoughts before we go on to the top 50, everyone? Actually, you know what's interesting is I feel like these videos used to be longer. I will point out that it's because the list has been so static. There's just less to say year over year. And I don't know what you do about that other than just know that that's true. But
well, that's why we cycle the co-hosts, right? I mean, there's been many people that we have to thank over the years. Luke Hector and Mark Dainty joined us one year, which was totally great. Last year it was Paul and Jeremy and Mike, and Mike's been out here a couple times. And you know, back in the way old days, Board Gamers Anonymous joined me, Anthony and Chris. I mean, they were more on the Euro end of things, so like that's why we wanted the fresh voices. And so, you know, here, I mean, look, demographically, look what's on the screen. And I think Liz and I did that on purpose. I mean, look, Derrick is bringing a different perspective, Maggie bringing a different perspective. And it, you know, speaking of like the woo stuff and, you know, brown soiled underwear, and actually brown soiled underwear is a little bit more mainstream. So.
Oh dear. I think it's definitely time to end this video. So
and then a high.
No,
Anyway,
yes. A high, a low.
Yes. You need the different voices to keep things fresh. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So that concludes our commentary on 51 to 100 on the People's Choice Top 200 list. And now, stay tuned because we're about to come back with 1 to 50. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Like, subscribe, comment. Happy gaming, and especially solo gaming. And thanks to all of you co-hosts with me.
You.
Bye.